live. It takes a sec.
Okay.
There you go.
7:02 on June 8th. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Harrington City Council to order. And we'll start off with our roll call.
Joe Armando's here.
Okay, David Budrias,
Present.
Stephen Hardy,
Here.
Peter Davenport,
Present.
and Levi Shank texted and said he would be here shortly, so we'll keep our eye open for him. Anybody in the audience? Our treasurer's now coming in. Evening, Mike. All of those of you in the audience who would like to be recognized, please say so now.
I will. Steve Wilson?
Sage Wilson, Stephen Marsh,
Sure. I'll buy that.
Laura Hayes? Denise
Laura?
Stelling,
Mark Womack.
Stan Roth.
thank you all for coming. I think I would like to make one little change in the agenda here, and I'd like to jump down and give Stephen Marsh a chance. Since he drove all the way out here, are you ready to entertain us for a few minutes?
Boy, entertain is a very lofty word for what I'm about ready to do.
You assured me this morning.
Song and dance, huh? Hey, guys, sure of that? Yeah.
We'll give you a chance to get up first if
Thank
you
you.
do not wish to stay for the rest.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Steve Marsh. I'm the office manager of TD&H Engineering in Spokane. You may notice that Adams Street's torn up. We are the engineers of that road, I guess is the best way to put it, doing the design. We're not doing the construction. Just to quickly update you guys, they have 20 working days to get it done. They are in day 12 of that, so there's 8 more days. Let me check my notes here. They have to have it done by June 20th, and it looks like they'll be paving on Monday, so it'll be nice and black by the time Monday, hopefully Monday night rolls around and Lord willing, the rivers don't rise.
Did you say they'll be done by Monday night?
No, they'll have it paved by Monday.
Hey, okay.
It'll look like it's done, because that's usually one of the last things to happen. So, if by next, then, by next week, maybe by next Friday, I think they run out of working, June 20th, is that,
Monday.
Monday, okay. So, a week from Monday, they'll be done. Guys have any questions regarding that?
I do. What happened with the shape change? It looks like the road is no longer straight nor 2 lanes. My husband accidentally went up it today.
It should be 2 lanes.
Okay.
As far as, it should be straight too. I know we designed it that way.
Okay, he just was
Don't know how
commenting
he
that
got
it
up
seemed
that
like
today.
it'd be a better sledding
all
hill
tore
now
up.
because
Yeah.
it had a bit of a curve in it, and it didn't appear to him to be 2 lanes.
Okay. We.
Is it close to through
we,
traffic?
we shouldn't, my understanding is that it should be just almost sitting right where it was before, just a better. better road.
It bends to the left as it goes to approach the railroad crossing.
Okay, I'll have to take, I don't remember that, but that doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
I wasn't the design engineer on it, so.
And the signs were down today, so that's why my husband wound up going up there. The road closed signs were not.
Okay.
displayed today.
We'll have my engineer give him a call. That's easy. Easy to fix.
Question, Steve.
Yes, sir.
We've gotten over a financial glitch with the project. Any engineering or construction problems?
Not that we're aware of. Well, there were, but nothing that concerns you guys. I'll put it to you that way. Since you talked about the financial end of it, let's see, was it about a month ago, or a couple weeks ago, we talked about a change order that came through. The context behind that was, it was about a $10,000 change order initially from the contractor for price increase from last year to this year. So the very first thing I did was I called Transportation Improvement Board, who had absolutely no fault in this, and gave them the worst sales pitch I've ever given any agency ever, and said, we don't have a leg to stand on for this, but could we get some money? Because it's really not their fault. And they said, yes, we'll give you $5,000. So we ended up taking the remaining $5,000, and there's enough mud on everybody's hands that we just decided to take that and divide it by 3. We pay part of it, the contractor ate a part of it, and you guys will eat part of it. So that's about $1,800. That's kind of how we looked at it. And I'm gonna knock on wood here, or
The chair.
we may not have to even worry about it because we made some slight design changes on the fly here in the last week or two. We may come in under budget, so we may not even have to worry about it. Does that
What
make
was the
sense?
nature of the original disagreement or glitch?
So, again, there's enough mud on all 3 of our hands. From the time that the town was to award the project to the time that it actually was awarded was 6 weeks. That's usually a 2 to 4 week process. And if we had those extra 2 weeks, we would have got the project done last year. Which we wouldn't ended up with the increase. It's our, part of it's our fault because we may not have acted as quickly either. And Massey didn't act quickly enough to get the BNSF right-of-way permit. So without us, everybody lawyering up over $1,800, which we would have burnt in about 3 hours of their time, we decided, let's just split it 3 ways if that's agreeable to everybody, and everybody said yes. And hopefully here at the end of the job, it won't matter.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Any cries of anguish from it?
Pretty small amount of money for each party.
We were lucky TIB threw in $5,000 when they didn't have to.
Would they mostly run into fuel costs, rental costs and stuff?
It was actually all their subs. So
Yeah,
the prime Massey, JR Massey, didn't increase, but the concrete increased. Surprisingly, the paving increased with the price of oil. There's a shocker.
yeah.
And then there was another one in there that increased. But again, all things considered, Massey, the prime never increased their price. They asked for their subs, and they were reasonable. And I think they're doing a pretty good job all in all, compared to a lot of contractors we've worked with lately.
Well, that's good to hear.
Any other questions regarding Adams Street? Everyone else?
Is it going to be good sledding hill?
I would never, as an engineer whose primary focus is public safety, I would never advocate for kids to use an active road as a sledding hill.
Right, absolutely. I was.
Having said that, though, once we close the road,
That is your guys' deal. It's your guys' deal. Any other questions?
Thanks for
Okay.
the explanation.
I've got nothing, it's looking pretty good.
Good. Hopefully we'll get out of they'll get out of here and we'll be done and we'll be off to your water system plan. So your meeting with Cynthia went well, Jerry?
I wasn't here.
Did you meet with Cynthia?
Today,
Oh, I mean. No, Cynthia Fuller from,
I talked to her.
okay. Did it go good?
We had a 30-second communication in which she told me what she wanted. I signed it. We sent it back, and
Didn't she come visit you last Thursday?
Didn't she come visit you on Thursday?
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
Was that the question?
Yes, it was.
Well, yes, she was here. We
Alright.
were glad to see her. She's a definite asset to us here in the city.
Yes, she's an anti-bureaucrat that works for the government,
Yes, she does. Very definite.
so.
Yeah, she's a treat to have around.
Okay, I won't take up any more time, I'm sorry. You're not scheduled.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Okay, we started something new here a couple of weeks ago, allowing public comments at the start of the meeting. Does anybody have any? Laura?
Yeah,
Please-
unfortunately, Laura Hayes,
Thank you. Please stand up, tell us your address, your name, where you live.
my name's Laura Hayes, I live at 507 West Lincoln,
Okay?
which is up on that end of town. Unfortunately, today I saw a mother raccoon and her kit in my backyard. The kit was out by itself at first, calling for help, and the mother came and got it. It then went to a house on our property, to an area on our property where we think it may be denning. So I called the sheriff. The sheriff put me through to Fish and Wildlife, and I'm waiting for them to call me back tomorrow. I know from many years ago that if it's a fur-bearing animal, the general population is not allowed to shoot it without a license. I know that because we had a badger living up under a garage many years ago. So I'm waiting to see what's happened. The problem is this mother raccoon has been seen going into town and eating out of people's pet food dishes that they've been living outside. So I would like to ask if it could be put down that if we continue to have things like pet food dishes outside and chickens being raised in town, we're gonna need an increase in animals like this that normally wouldn't be a problem, except when they are denning and they get very protective of their kids. Unfortunately, there are 2 special needs children within 500 yards of where this raccoon is. So that's what I'm telling Fish and Wildlife when they call me back and ask to have them investigate and remove it. So, but I've seen this raccoon come into town from out in the Scab Rock every day, except for today it was actually staying in town, so.
Okay?
Just as a public awareness that they're dangerous. They carry disease, and if someone's kid was to pick up the kit thinking it was lost and not recognizing it as a baby raccoon, and the mother saw that, the mother would attack to get the kit back. And that could really be dangerous.
Just one kit?
That was the only one that was wandering loose. I did not see the den itself because of the tall grass in the area that we're working on clearing.
Okay.
But, yeah, it was definitely, it went back to an area would be a very good den, especially if it's found a regular source of food in town.
Okay, just to let you know, typically it'll be 3.
Right, I only, like I
Always
said,
three.
I only saw the one, but I would expect there to be more,
Okay,
so.
always 3. Nice to have one. That's bad.
Anybody else?
Always 3.
Well, I don't know whether or not now would be a good time. I'm kind of curious about my paycheck. Remember how you guys bumped it up? And then you said that over time you could deduct it, and that we're not gonna have overtime. And now this week it was higher than what it had been before also.
So you should have received a check that was consistent with the pay requirements through the state.
Okay, so that never went through the city council though.
Well, the state pretty well tells us what we'll pay people. And when it's minimum
Doesn't have
wage,
to be approved by the city council then, huh?
I don't believe so. I think the state tells us what we can and can't pay people.
Okay, so then do you have to pay that back to January, or you just have to start when they informed you?
That would be something that I'd have to look into.
I'd appreciate it if you would, thank you.
Okay?
And then I had another question. You guys had appointed, Stephen Hardy and, Joe Arman for the, investigation on the library I guess that was over the, resolution 96-94. And I hadn't heard any report on it last month, and so I was wondering if you guys were going to address it this month.
They are on the committee, and due to COVID, which has gone through the ranks here in the past month and a half, there'll be no report now.
We've met once, we've talked 3 times,
Mhm.
and we've been working on it.
And the library board was in here today, and I told them that the 2 gentlemen in charge here would like to have a meeting with them, so they were advised of that. And go over some of the findings that we had with our meeting with the lawyer,
Where you did meet with the lawyer?
twice. And I'm not prepared to break that to the public at the moment,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Any other questions?
I have
Stan.
a quick update. Louise and I were here for the car show on the 21st. During that show, I had conversations, fairly long ones, with Jim Knapp, Jim Ells, and Jim Wilcox concerning the cemetery. Jim Knapp had gotten a copy of my report from you, and he has been studying that. Jim Ells, I strongly suggested he get one from you. Has he?
He did get one.
Okay. The 4 of us, at some point in the foreseeable future, I hope, will be getting together to talk about cemetery issues, because all 3 of those guys are interested in getting involved in what goes on up there. And I just thought I'd offer that update.
Well, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty that goes on up there.
It was really encouraging to me to see that there has been some response and some talking around the group out here in Harrington about the fact that we did some research and there was some work being done, and that they actually contacted me to talk about it. And so I was really encouraged that maybe the stirring the pot like we did this spring was worth the effort.
I think so. We had a gentleman in here today from Oklahoma City looking for a grave site, which we were unable to find, but he was extremely appreciated with the time we spent with him, to the tune of giving us a check for $250. So he thought the place looked wonderful, even though we couldn't help him locate somebody from 1819. And this,
1819?
well, I believe that's what it was. It was a child that had lived 36 hours, no marked grave, and he wasn't sure which name it was under, but they would like to put a headstone there. So I've got his name, and we'll continue seeing what we can find out for him.
Do we have any updates on the geomapping project?
I have gotten nothing from that group of individuals. I sent them all of the pictures I took, and what I did find out was that it was my understanding that they might use some sort of ground scanning radar to tell us what's in the ground. That's one of our biggest concerns, of who might be there and who might not be home. So over the years, some of those records are not as accurate as they maybe should be. But according to him, no, they do not do that. And
I'm holding off on pushing anything very hard at this point until we see what kind of result we're gonna get from them and how usable it's gonna be, the information's gonna be.
yeah. I'll have another update here. We've got a couple more tree service people. I'll bring that up a little later on tonight, but things have progressed there with a few more points of interest So
What's your call?
the price is coming down, and that's always a good thing.
Not yet.
Anybody else on the floor? Okay, let's move on to approve the May payroll.
So just the way the agenda set says additions to the agenda. If you don't have on your mayor's update a discussion about weeds, I'd like to.
Oh, sorry about that. About what? Weeds?
Plural,
More than one?
more than one.
Sorry, I snuck Stephen Marsh in there
No,
and,
no, that's fine.
and,
Payroll.
And I'd like to revisit one element of the audit, if that's appropriate.
okay,
I got one, or actually a couple follow-up on Attorney Bingaman,
okay.
what that status is.
That's going to come up tonight in executive session.
Okay, and then, did we ever find out an answer for, Cade Clark, Mr. Clark's, about sidewalk responsibility?
I've got a couple things there that are ordinances. So, yes.
And then, for Ms. Foreman, Kelly Foreman, her question about the dog ordinance. Those are two people that addressed the council.
And I took her copies of both of those
Okay, so,
within days. So she's had that.
okay, that's all I had. Got most of it answered tonight already.
So we're looking at the check register then?
Pardon me?
Check register?
Yes.
There he is.
Evening,
Bronco
Levi.
Pride. Bronco Pride.
So,
I can go first. 2 late fees. 411, top of the sheet. And where else did I see it? 379, a little bit over 2/3 of the way through, US Bank.
Are you on the payroll or the check register?
Check
So we-
register.
Check register.
are you going to make a motion that we approve any of these?
Oh, sure, I'll move that we approve so we can go into discussion.
Okay, thank you. Second on that?
Second.
Levi, second. Thank you, Levi. Okay, now,
Thank you.
you're more than welcome.
So I was just curious as to the two mentions of late on there.
So the first one, 411,
Mm-hmm.
yeah? My question for that was, or answer to that was that there was some miscommunications with labor and industries. Jerry, can you add anything to that for us?
I goofed.
Okay, that happens.
Paying those government entities, sometimes their sites are just difficult to understand. And I just will miss it by a day or two, and we end up with a late bill.
And they charge 18.7% interest per month.
They are pretty harsh, yes.
Wow, they get a good rate.
Yeah,
Does bias, Jerry, does bias in the program, does it help you with any of that?
it does a lot of the calculations. But when it comes down to what time of the month to do it, that's up to my memory.
Okay.
And if I get swamped in here, I forget. That's why I've been begging for a second person,
I was under
so
the,
that I can stay on track with
I would have thought that program would have alerted you to
right,
something,
I was under
you
the
know.
impression that this computer program, software in them would help a person avoid that type of situation by alerts or emails or something.
If it does alerts, I have no idea.
Huh.
And then 379, late fee on US bank statements.
That was because they did not send me a statement in April.
Okay. Did they acknowledge that, or is that just something we haven't found?
I called them on that because I got the May statement and I never had the April one,
Okay.
so I had them.
Since this is on a line item that says credit card statement for 2 months, how much of that was late fee?
I'd have to pull that out.
I guess it doesn't matter too much because it is whatever they say it is, I guess. But
Doesn't the manager take care of that?
Well, I was, thank you, David.
Likely a $29 late fee. I would have to look specifically at what kind of card I believe I know what kind of card it is. I believe it's a $29 late fee.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
You're fine. I was sitting here thinking, can I say something? Should I not?
I think I'm good because we'll talk about weed spraying later.
I do have a general question, not, before I was on the council, when the visa was being acknowledged to being acquired, I thought one of the goals of that was in my head, I don't have anything to reference, but I thought part of it was to get some of these superfluous credit accounts
Yeah.
to stop being used.
Yep, combine it on one.
Yeah, just to use the Visa card as for everything. So with that in mind, should we be getting rid of Home Depot credit and just eliminate it as an account, since we've got an ulterior mechanism to use? And the reason I bring it up, I mean,
I'm not
really,
opposed to it.
yeah,
Are they giving rewards? Do you know?
well, there's two sides of it. I know that these merchant cards typically charge a higher interest rate, but the flip side of that is very often they're knocking 10% off at the point of sale. So that's I'm just wondering how to weigh that out. Does
our
anybody
current-
know?
That's a good point. Does our current US bank card have any perks to it, like cash back?
Not if it's the one that, do you mind?
Go ahead if you know
Yeah.
something.
Yes, not if it's the card that I remember setting up, which is what we call the community card. The perk with that is there's no
fees.
annual fee. There's no annual fee, so there's no rewards. On the other side of that, if you want the rewards, then you would pay the annual fee. So if it's that one, then there's no rewards, but there's no annual fee.
How much would the annual fee be?
I believe it's $99, but typically the rewards cover that, and you can pay it with the rewards balance. I believe, I'd have to look, because it's government, that's a little bit separate from the branch banking. But I can definitely get that information to you.
Would probably be to our advantage. I know we looked into that for the Lions Club as well, and we didn't go with that because we wouldn't do enough charges
Right.
to overcome $100, but I'm sure the city does.
Yeah,
Easily.
I just wonder if it's a wash or if it's a plus, whatever. But what Councilman Armand said is, I'm in favor of culminating everything into, kind of more of an accounting fashion. I don't know, the treasurer, if he has to weigh anything, if it'd make it easier in any way.
It's one less bill to pay.
Yeah.
I don't care. I think it's good as long as it's not as long as the Home Depot thing isn't a juicy discount.
I mean, we're obviously not using it much. I mean, we bought bathroom supplies for $55.
We don't use it much. I asked Jerry today if he could show me the statements for this bank card. There was things put on there last month. We talked about some of them today. Some of the charges that were put on there, I was a little bit surprised that we paid some of those with credit card, but
Is it advantageous for bookkeeping purposes to do it that way? Have one card or not? Would it be easier to for bookkeeping purpose, to have just, instead of have multi,
Well, we have two cards, basic.
right?
We have the Home Depot card, which I can easily get rid of. We have the Visa, and then we have the Grange card.
2 cards, yeah.
The fuel,
So
Fuel
the
cards.
Visa and the Grange card would be the only two we'd have, if you wanna get rid of Home Depot.
Makes no difference from the treasurer's standpoint.
okay.
The clerk is the one that handles all that stuff, so that's not a treasurer issue.
The thing we missed here is some kind of a trigger to tell us that it was not here.
Right, well, I just wonder how we, I guess it's not, how do we, I guess we're going this far. How is that bill, the statement paid a month, every month? Is it lick a stamp and put it on an envelope,
It's a check, yes.
or deposit it in the night box, or when we deposit? I found it, US Bank, to be very accommodating. If it's due on Sunday or a holiday, you could drop it off in their box on Friday. I mean, drop it off in their, what is it?
Night deposit.
Night deposit boxes. Done. And you don't have to mess with it. And it's, as soon as you get it, it's instantly processed. There's no late fees.
No, it'd be processed the next business day if it's dropped off after what we say is 8:30.
Right. But I mean, if it has to be,
In Davenport?
yeah. Or any US bank, for that
Well,
matter,
that's
can do it.
closest one. Yeah.
I know the one at 5 Mile.
Was the late fee
Open on
assigned to
weekends.
the April bill? Do you know, do you remember?
Yes.
And what happened again?
They never sent me a bill, so I was waiting to cut the check, and I didn't know how much to cut it for, so I got the
So
bill.
did we contest the late fee or pay it?
We paid it.
Did we ask to sweet talk them? Yeah, okay. I guess that was one of the things about negotiating later. The auditor pointed out is the ability to negotiate that, or how they're negotiated. But that's something probably for a later date to discuss.
City of Arlington.
I won't, but
Oh, you're fine. I have a question for Mike after this.
Negative.
If we didn't get a bill, we ought to contest it. Small amount of money, but
You'll have
you
to
got a
call the
question
golf
in
course.
the audience.
If you look up harringtonbiz.com, and you'll find the number. You bet.
Yes,
I'm curious as to why we aren't taking advantage of the online services that US Bank offers for getting statements and things like that.
Getting statements?
Online banking, basically is what you're referring to?
Yes.
In large part, that's my deal. And currently I have probably 15 different passwords. And their password protocol is one that, since I'm not in it every day, it takes one character to kick me out of it.
Be a nightmare.
So I've just not put the effort into it to look those statements up every day, because I got enough other stuff to look at.
Well, I'm just wondering, because if they hadn't taken a bill and you knew it was getting to be time to pay it.
Understand? I
I'm
know.
not.
That's why I said I goofed.
Okay, I'm just curious, because I've been known to miss a credit payment or two, so.
So, Council, aren't you still on paying bills motions? Seems like you're kind of meandering off.
Well, I got a couple of questions on the check register. James A. Sewell and Associates, there's 2 entries. It's 342 and 437. Is that this clarification? Is that for the sewer project, or who's James A. Sewell actually?
Pass that to him, it'll answer his questions.
The invoices are in here.
Well, I guess the other part of my question is that money, is that part of grant money that we're getting reimbursed, or is that out of our pocket to James A. Sewell?
As far as I know, it's out of our
Or,
pocket.
so this is US Bank, but is there any, can anybody tell me what James A. Sewell, what they're doing?
And look through, you'll find a statement from it.
They're doing things for the wastewater treatment plant, aren't
Is that Andy Tom?
Yes,
That's, I thought it was the sewer.
Sewell.
Well, let me clarify, that for our sewer, our wastewater, not there.
they? So that money is ultimately coming from the grant or the reduced loan though, right? So,
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Or Mr. Hardy.
either is fine.
That's all I have for questions on that. Oh, I fibbed. One more. Harrington Truck and Auto, it says Public Works expenses, is that repairs and supplies, or?
A great majority of
Just
that
for a
is
mix?
for plumbing.
Okay. I just see our Vector truck
There
down there again.
will be a pretty good bill for the Vector truck as it blew up the PTO drive,
Okay,
but that's not for this month.
okay, no worries.
For plumbing, you say?
Plumbing, we buy a
Plumbing
lot,
parts?
plumbing parts, correct. When we're doing plumbing jobs around town here, we utilize Mike, as he sells a lot of plumbing hardware, to keep the boys from running, or keep Troy from running back and forth to different places just to complete a job.
For these parts that have already been installed?
Yes,
They're bought as needed, I guess.
yes. I go through their bill every month, line by line.
Good.
Vote on accepting.
Any other
Need a
discussion?
motion?
We have a motion already.
It's been seconded.
Is there any other discussion? On the claims?
No,
No?
I don't.
None
I'm
here.
good.
Okay. All in favor of approving the claims as shown on the register here, signify by saying aye.
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 So that's 5-0. Thank you, council. The next would be the approval of our payroll for the month.
Move to approve payroll.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the payroll. Discussion?
I have no questions.
None for me. Looks good. Good job, Jerry.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the payroll. All in favor, say aye.
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 Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. So, approval of the minutes for the May 17th meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for the May 17th meeting.
I'm good.
No discussion?
No questions?
Minor correction,
Okay.
under approval of payroll, Councilman Schenk, not Scheck.
We're gonna go back here a little bit.
On
Oh.
payroll.
I won't take offense at that, Peter.
I think it'd be easier to change your name even.
And that's in the
Makes
minutes,
for a great
Peter, or
conversation
in the
piece.
payroll?
It's in the minutes.
To the May 17th meeting.
Okay. Huh,
Halfway down the page.
what an eye.
It is correct in adjournment and listing of council members, so I think that's the only location.
Okay. Well, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the minutes as amended.
I just have one thing. This is for the special meeting, the 17th special meeting,
Correct.
okay? I talked, there was an error on that. It was. So it's. It was a
Oh, it's
special-
not the regular meeting, it was a special
I
meeting.
asked, the clerk if everybody got that. I think they did. So we're approving those amended. Okay.
Yeah, the copy I'm looking at identifies it as a special meeting.
Yes.
So,
We're good.
Look at the
The heading.
heading.
right, but right under the heading.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay, got it. The next sentence.
Then it says regular meeting here.
Yeah.
And that should say special too.
Yes.
Good catch, Joe. Other than that, I'm good.
Okay, I've got notes here, so we'll get this fixed up. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the minutes as per their corrections. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Oppose? Okay. So, Joe,
Oh, sure.
is there anything you would like to say about the determination of non-significance?
It's really that I wish it was non-significant. This is part of the critical areas ordinance that we had to do. And as part of that, we have to fill out a document saying that our critical areas ordinance is not going to have, in our case, is not gonna have an environmental impact. And then have to basically create a statement, which is a determination of non-significance that says, based on the criteria and everything, we feel like there is no negative significance, negative effect to ecology, to the environment in Harrington from our critical areas ordinance. Bottom line, it's kind of a bureaucratic process that we have to go through. The paperwork that was done, you guys have a copy of it. It has gone through everybody, commerce, ecology, fish and wildlife. They've had their input, we've installed their input. It really doesn't affect anything to do with the city. You know, if we were a city with a river running through it or on the Puget Sound, that'd be a different story, but we're not. Everyone that's looked at it has said, way to go, this looks great, let's push forward. If there's anything in there that you read that is different, I mean, it has to be open to public comment. This document has to be published, and then it has to be open to for public comment if needed. But it has been uploaded to the city, it's been uploaded to the state's database. All the little bits and pieces of the state of Washington that run the state have access to look at it and they can make exceptions to it or make comments. So far, we're golden. So
Did we have to put it in the paper at all? Did you say-
we do have to publish it in the paper,
Okay.
and I'll find out exactly the criteria. I believe we had kind of determined that once we're at that point, it'll be put in the Lincoln Advertiser, simply for cost effectiveness.
Well, it gets out to everybody.
Gets out to everybody, and it's cheaper.
So you're saying we need to do a public hearing on the DNS?
Yes, we will have to have that document published and then open to public comment if anybody has any issues with it.
Okay, so what's the action for tonight?
I don't know what the
Actually, the only action that I wanted to bring up is I wanted Joe to speak to that if he would. Today, I actually pinned both that and the SEPA. So, both of those documents were turned over to Cindy Anderson today. And it's
and
my
uploaded.
and uploaded into the state, so.
Yep. It's loaded, recorded, filed, numbered. It's in there. The only thing she wants is the signed copies to update, and she's the only one that can upload the signed copies into the state system. So,
So
And any-
hopefully within 2 weeks, this whole thing will be put to rest,
yeah.
including the piece that we just signed tonight that was,
Yeah, that
Yeah, I think I still have to sign it.
non-compete.
And anybody that's curious what a SEPA stands for, it's the State Environmental Protection Act.
Thank you.
thank you, Joe. Mayor's comments. As of today, Chris Phillips was in here this morning, and our burn pile, we do not have a dump, never did have a dump. The burn pile is closed indefinitely. So, we no longer have a place to dump green waste other than in the dumpster. This has happened for a myriad of reasons. The biggest one has been people's inability to stop dumping garbage and other things in there that didn't belong. And now, after checking with his insurance company, he has extreme concerns that he may have liabilities if anybody gets hurt on his property. So as of this morning at about 9 o'clock, we no longer have a place to freely dump burnable waste, well, green waste. And that's kind of a sad situation, but it was probably going to come at some point in time. Sage,
But isn't there an issue putting green waste in our dumpsters for the apple maggot fly larvae or something like that?
we have a
Referring to the green waste dumpster.
green waste dumpster, the
Oh,
big,
the one, okay,
yes.
got it. Thank you
What?
for the clarification.
What is the issue? Because they haul that out of here.
That one goes to the
She was
company.
just having confusion as to what
Oh.
dumpsters we were being referred to.
Yeah, it goes to the outfit over here by Fish Trap. And they turn that into organic material.
Compost.
Yes. So. And it doesn't leave the county apparently. So. So there is no longer a dump there.
No more questions,
No question.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay?
Back of the room.
Where's the green waste dumpster hauled to?
Green waste dumpster goes out here to Fish Trap where they grind it up and treat it.
Turn it into mulch or something?
Yes. Yeah.
Doesn't that violate the apple maggot
Well,
Fish fry.
limitation?
I obviously not, because it's taken there by Lincoln County transfer.
I didn't know apple maggots like grass.
I think I have
Well,
an answer to that and a question.
any rate, the second part of this update tonight is that we have another bid for the removal of the trees. The first one was $37,000.
Hey, Jess,
That was by Royal.
Before we get into the trees, I think she wanted to.
Where is that dumpster located?
right straight down here on,
Third,
Third and
Linden.
Linden. Thank you.
And as far as being able to, Peter, as far as him being able to do it, as long as it's still in the possession of Lincoln County agents, it's okay to transport the fish trap. It's because they're bonded not to dump it along the way. That's how they're able to move it
Okay.
to Spokane County.
Makes sense.
Okay, makes sense to me too. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, Jess.
Thanks, Laura. So, our first bid was for $37,000 to remove those trees. We now have one from a local tree man here, which is Wheatland Tree Service, and he came in at $27,000. And we had another one from a company in Spokane who, after looking at our trees, thought about it and decided he didn't want any part of climbing our trees or taking them down. So there's another gentleman coming Saturday, is it?
Friday.
Friday. So
To look at it for a quote?
to look at it for a quote.
Yep.
Are any of these guys arborists, or what's their qualifications?
Wheatland is. Wheatland is.
Is, okay.
Well, it says right here he is a third generation arborist, locally owned tree service and stump grinding.
And what was,
And-
from the inception, is this, why, for clarification, is this taking down trees that are, why? Because they're broken, dead?
Broken, some of them dead, split, ready to come down.
Rotted out in the core.
Do we have a contingency to replace it with trees when we remove these?
I rather doubt it. I think these are the locust trees there, and virtually every one of them is split right down the middle. And they have multiple huge trunks coming up.
I get where you're coming from, David, if I may comment. The trees that I looked at, and I'm not an arborist, but it doesn't take one to see one that's split in two. And I mean, clearly they're a danger to people and the headstones and the things that are there. They do need to be removed, whether we like it or not. Flip side of that is, there's nothing that says we can't appropriately plant and replace these trees with maybe something that is less problematic. You know, a breed of tree that is as aesthetically pleasing, more aesthetically pleasing for that matter. But I think that's a secondary thing from what I looked at. Some of these trees are frightening to think about standing close to in a windstorm.
Another question is the arborist including that in their bid? Recommendations for replanting?
You know, I'll bet you could get by up there with losing 12 trees and never know it.
Losing what?
Losing 12 trees in that cemetery based on the size of the trees. Some of them are beginning to turn up some of the headstones because, as you can imagine, these trees were this big around when they were planted 80 years ago probably, and are now probably 8 foot around.
Are they planning on any evergreens?
Only one, and it just, no evergreens to come down. Only one that needs to have some limbs removed. Widowmakers up one side.
So some, I mean, are they gonna remove, do they plan on removing the stumps of the ones that they plan on cutting down?
Well, from what I understand, they would, these trees have to be brought down piece by piece by piece, so we don't destroy the cemetery in the process. And then they would grind the stump and paint it with something, and apparently the stumps will rot, take care of themselves. But these trees are not like a big fir tree.
There you go.
Listening to both of these gentlemen, the bottoms of them are mostly all rotted and gone right now.
Like everything
So
else.
they've reached the extent of their life expectancy. In fact, probably did that 30 years ago.
Right, well, just for my 2 cents, for the sake of the community, and been here all my life, trees, they take a lifetime or several generations to grow. If they absolutely are a danger or something, then it must be done. But just, I would say for those reasons only, but also of replanting something in there, whether it be a maple or a evergreen or something that'll replace it. That it won't look like a bare cemetery anymore. Or in the future. Cause our old timers, they had pride in that, and they went through a lot of work. And, I think we take something down, we put something back in. It'll take several generations before, we won't see the benefit of it.
My understanding about these particular, the bulk of this breed of tree, this black locust, is most likely they were planted in the 60s and 70s.
Way before that.
Okay,
They're 80 years old or more.
okay. But they do have a relatively short life. They do not do long term. They're not an oak that lasts a long time.
I'll give you that. They are an ugly tree, but it's time, you know.
True, very
I'll just
true.
be blunt about it, but
No,
the thing is, they were hardy in this. The old timers, they that's the only thing that would really grow. Low maintenance.
That's true.
No, I'm with you. I would love to see something that is there for the ages, that, you know, is an oak, that is a maple, something that is big and proud and doesn't need to come down. But unfortunately, these were not the right breed to accomplish that.
But however, I think the ones that we're talking about are on our perimeter. Granted, I know exactly what you're talking about. Some of the trees that were planted many moons ago, and they are. What were they thinking when they put a grave right there? There was a sapling, and now that gravestone, you know, that's an issue, and that's something I don't want to make a decision on. But I'll tell you,
It's almost like putting a house next to an airport, isn't it?
exactly, or a railroad, or anything like that. But this,
How many trees?
12,
That's all?
that's all.
Okay.
And virtually every one of these has a sacrificial tree growing down the middle of it,
a sucker.
a sucker,
Yeah.
that are well healthy and splitting the trees, actually splitting them in half.
A different
They're
breed.
amazing, not the same type of tree. They're all different, they're playing host to other trees or saplings from other trees.
Are these all like centrally located trees or are they spread out? If
They're pretty much throughout the whole cemetery. They're like the ones, the big one there opposite end of the block from you, the huge tree there by that little house. Just like that. You can imagine what it would take to take that tree down. Laura.
Just a comment on the black locust, we had several that had to be removed because they have a tendency to rot in the middle, the way they grow, especially here.
Yeah,
And you just have to take them out at that point completely, because they're just not healthy, and they are definitely a danger, causing someone major injury if they fall, because part of it'll split.
I talked to a citizen today about that, and his comment was, they're all dead anyways up there. No, they're not gonna hurt nobody.
I don't know if they're dead, they just haven't bloomed yet. They're,
No, I'm
they're
talking about the people.
oh. They
A
are,
little bit of humor.
Are we
I
getting,
appreciated it, David.
Okay.
yeah. No, those people up there don't bother me at all. Great neighbors.
Did the mayor say that we're expecting somebody else to come in with a third quote?
Yes,
I'm
This week.
shocked by the amount of money this project is gonna cost us.
It
I'm-
costs that much for, I'm sorry to chime in, but we have had an arborist out to Dad's house to take out a lot of your trees. And it's expensive to get someone who's qualified to take them down safely. A lot of insurance needs on their part.
That tree that fell over in David's backyard cost $6,200 to have it removed.
After it was down.
Out of the ground and on the ground.
these are about 3,500 apiece is what they're
It's a willow.
getting.
That willow tree that was in David's backyard.
But that was a huge thing.
$6,200.
I'm in the wrong line of work.
Yeah,
Well,
the challenge with these.
You go take a look at these and then tell me if you want to take them down.
No, I just was saying, don't cost
Yeah.
for it.
No,
He's talking to me about that.
yeah,
To each and every one of these arborists, because I've talked to two of them so far, and to their credit, is they're looking at it from the most efficient, delicate way they can do, so it has zero impact on the cemetery.
yes.
They want to bring them down by hand, nothing's getting dropped out of the sky. They're talking about basically block and tackle these things all the way to the
That's
deck,
not
so that
fun.
there's absolutely no chance of any kind of headstone or grave being defaced. So
Has any of the arborists stated how long it's gonna take, how many days, weeks?
Oh, a long time. It's a big job.
the one that I spoke to said 2 weeks minimum.
2 weeks minimum?
2 weeks minimum.
And how many trees are we talking?
12.
12.
12.
That's about right.
And both of the two people that have bid on this have bidded up to cut them into 16 to 18 foot, 16 to 18 inch fireplace length pieces of wood that we would figure out how to get rid of. So they're not talking about hauling the wood away. I've
Posting
got
that in the
a,
advertiser, it'll be gone in a week.
Does the Lions Club, could they use that for the Fall Fest?
Maybe next year, they have to see them.
The Lions Club generally uses apple wood. For
They use a special,
ferns.
that's what I pretty much figured out.
manageable pieces, something, yep. And I made a deal with a guy that would let us put all of the limbs in an area here close to town so they wouldn't have to haul the stuff away. So all we gotta do is get rid of the trunks,
Okay.
so.
Does it seem appropriate to advertise firewood in the local newspapers? There are a lot of people who heat with wood.
I think probably a sign, not advertise, free. Please.
My headphones are going.
Wider advertisement by advertising
But
in the papers.
but the type of wood, they might be too picky on that.
Peter, it wouldn't be able to be burned this year anyway. It has to season for a year after you cut it down.
After what?
Season it, you have to let it dry, otherwise you're gonna have it exploding in the fireplace from the sap and stuff.
So much for the mayor's information this week. Next thing on our agenda here is an executive session in which we need to have about 10 minutes, I'm going to say, and we will be discussing legal. One of our lawyers. So I'm going to set this right now.
Nobody run off with stuff.
For 10 minutes. Give me 1 second, gentlemen. Okay?
10 minutes?
10 minutes, we'll say.
That's gonna be the.
I believe I actually remember taking your call in Harrington.
Yes,
I vaguely remember.
they do.
When's your
Okay.
last day, Mike?
What?
After I talked to
Treasure.
you, in the spring, I spent about 45 hours here in the city hall during February and March, going through old, council minutes and old ordinances and resolutions. And I put together a report on what I found, and it appears that the document that I thought we should be looking for was probably never created.
Oh,
But the ordinances that established the endowment fund and that modified it a few years later, that was 1989, it was established. 1996, it was modified. Those ordinances both had the right language in it to define the endowment fund and how it was to be managed. So I think that those two ordinances actually stood in for whatever document that currently they would expect people to set up for something like that.
okay.
So If you're taking over as treasurer, Mike's got a copy of that report. I think Jeff still has an extra copy, but I could certainly send you a copy if you wanna give me an
I have
email
copies.
address. You got some copies yet?
Yeah,
Okay.
I put some in the back room.
It's something you might wanna just look at for reference so that you know what went on.
Oh, okay, absolutely, thank you. Is there anything you need from me going forward for that?
Not at this point, no.
Okay, I don't have any business cards on me. The,
Oh, that's okay,
the change has been very recent, so I haven't ordered the new stock, but
that's okay.
I'll get
I
one.
know where
from
to find you.
Absolutely, it's not hard. Mike, do you mind if I come over there for a moment?
Come right on over.
Can I pull up a check?
Of course you may.
Is here okay?
Oh, no, you speech on it here. I'm just swiping Jerry's spot.
Oh,
Marge,
was wondering.
usually look before a meeting
So-
is due,
Just
I
a
usually
second.
look at
My
the
thought
Hampton
before
News
US Bank
website
logged me out.
and the
Oh, we're
calendar.
good at that.
And, there's usually a link, once there's an agenda in existence, there's usually a link there, and I just copy that off and print it and bring it with me.
Oh, so the,
For the agenda.
I didn't know they did that.
I've been, that's how I've known when to come for for the last, since I've.
I need help on here.
I find that to be really, really helpful since I'm not here and checking in frequently and like.
If I take a day off, I'm lost for a week.
So I did,
So,
Jerry
things are
got you
happening
one for tonight.
pretty quick
I
in
did
here.
have a spare, I have the one I printed at home
just
and then
not
he handed
keeping
me
up
one here, so.
I don't believe
And they match?
Yeah,
We,
there was one
Yeah,
on the website
well, there was so much in
Monday,
that dealt with
No,
the
Tuesday,
grants
yesterday. and then
that took priority.
today I
over
looked
everything.
this morning
And
and
looking
there
for
was a,
bank
it said
statements.
revised. So I printed, I had them both on paper and I laid them side by side, and sure enough, there was some additions. So I usually check during the day before when the meeting is scheduled, and there'll be one that's really, if not totally accurate and current, it's really, really close.
That I can put calendars on.
I've been relying on that website pretty heavily the last few months. Yeah.
And I have to keep track
It's very
of
helpful.
bills. And I've gotta have an answer for every one of these things. Yeah,
It's gonna get over early.
yeah. And I wish, I send the council these check registers on Fridays, so they can have 2 days to go through. And very rarely do they do that to me. And if, like, Dave, he actually called me on Monday, and he said, here's some changes that need to be made. So I made the changes. That was helpful. But spring and stuff over in here, no, I can't remember everything I do. I'm not 20 years old anymore. So, I'm just frustrated with it because I get called on the cards. They were just saying, council meeting. Well, would somebody please come up with a solution? If I'm doing it that wrong, come up with a solution and tell me how to fix it.
Maybe they should have their stuff ready by the Tuesday before the executive, so you have a chance to either figure out what went wrong or figure out what went right.
Well, there, if I read the guidance right, they were supposed to come up with the agenda. They leave it up to me, and then they criticize me because I,
That's actually I don't know, if it's the mayor or the city council, but it's not your job.
so, get them to get on board with the rules. If I
If you
just,
suggest that it's not your job to do it.
I said, just give me somebody 20 hours a week. That would really help.
and I don't want to push anymore. Yeah, so I need to bring back all the cemetery stuff so that she doesn't have to deal with that.
Going out with that and the cemetery committee's gonna help to do it.
The easiest way for them to replace those 12 trees is to join the Arbor Society for a year. Get 10 free trees. No, I was gonna wait till the last public comment thing there and let them know that, and they pick up
The
the
locust and the Chinese elm trees that are up at the cemetery.
and
that are
1
getting
year of
attention.
membership is not
So
I think are approximately the same age as the locust and Chinese elms that were planted around our farmhouse.
I figured.
When I was little.
Oh, no, he
I got a newspaper article of when they were planted.
Do you?
thing, so they haven't done on the cemetery.
There was a lot of those planted
codes
early
They've
in
never
the
maintained
in the existence of
and
white civilization.
And that was it.
A lot of people planted those trees because they were easy to get started and they grew quickly
And those trees would
and they
last
gave
longer.
decent shade
Had that been
in the
raised.
summer.
That needs to
We
be
had them all the way, we had them around 3 sides of the farmhouse. And they're the same, the very same style of tree. And the way I remember the ones we had, I think they were probably pretty close to the same age as the ones that are up there at the cemetery. And they were full-grown mature trees at that point. And that was 70 years ago.
Well, that's what these have done.
And,
The outside may look
and
good, but the
I
inside.
remember how, trying to break up all those little teeny tiny leaves. And, they were terrible about dropping
Get a few.
small branches and limbs all
Do
over
they
the
have
place.
thorns on them?
I
No,
The locust
And
trees?
the black locust is native to the East Coast.
no, they really didn't. Neither one of them. The Chinese elm didn't for sure.
With those.
I don't
They're
think
not
the
native to
locust
this
has
area.
thorns on them.
So that's why they don't.
It was,
lose
it
as
had
long.
long, slender stalks coming out of the branches and there was little round leaves all the way out. I used to pick those and stick them through the fence into the chicken yard and the chickens would come running up and eat them.
Yeah.
So these trees are overdue for serious maintenance.
It's okay.
They really
You're forgiven.
need to come
I know for
down.
me, if I haven't seen this date, and I have a tickler on my calendar, like a certain day of every month, I haven't seen the bills, I have to.
And most of the ones that, there aren't too many.
Put some reminders on.
There's some that are in the middle of the area, but the bulk of them are around the outside perimeter of
I
the
have 3
cemetery
things I wanna get done every
at this
day.
point.
That's, so
They-
I sit
they
at the
don't,
breakfast
um,
table, I say, okay, I'm gonna get
They don't
this
give you
done,
an
this
awful
done,
lot of
this
shade.
done. That's all I,
They drop a lot of limbs,
and
they're
usually I take
messy
care
as
of
all
all
heck.
that. And they're 10-year projects.
I
so,
really don't, I think it would improve the appearance just to have them gone because when Louise and I were up there putting up flowers before Memorial Day, I took a real good look at them on account of the discussions we've been having here. And they really do make it look a little bit like a ghost town sort of.
Were you happy with the way the cemetery looked? Were you happy with the way the cemetery looked for Memorial Day?
On the whole, yes, very much.
I thought the grass looked horrible.
Really?
Very unkempt.
I'm a stationary nurse.
I think it was probably one of the worst Memorial Days I've seen up there with the grass.
Oh,
Mowed way too soon.
I can't say that
To
at
where
all. We were there
I've heard it from 3 other people.
we were there on Wednesday before Memorial Day.
Oh, I see the people.
And it looked like it had just been freshly mowed and it looked really good.
That's the one that has the microphone in it.
Oh, I see.
It looks good for the first day or two.
Little winkle.
But they're mowing it so hard.
Well,
Yeah, so maybe that's what.
yeah,
Okay.
as a comparison, we were at Riverside Cemetery on
Cancel.
Government Way in Spokane Wednesday. And that
Was
was,
that thing on the whole time?
the grass was this
I'm
tall.
gonna check it later.
Took up the trimming, any
Okay, more public comments?
Well, we have additions to the agenda.
Okay, yes. Mine were all answered, but just listen.
So,
I think mine will be short.
so we had weeds.
Yes, it's true.
What can we
Um,
talk about weeds for you?
I had a citizen approach me about questions regarding what we're doing with spraying. I saw two charges for spraying on the claims that we approved. One was cemetery, one was unspecified. I know Levi, you were heading up some degree of weeds stuff. What did we? I guess I'd say, what did we do, and have we taken care of all of the city properties, especially the more relevant ones to any gatherings that might happen in the downtown area?
To me,
To anyone?
let me back up. I contacted one company about weed spraying. They never got back to me. Jess was able to get a hold of the guy who did the cemetery in the park. And yeah, I thought he was doing it all. I didn't realize that he wasn't.
He did all of our parks.
Okay.
And the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
The plant that grows there every year is
Evil?
Kosha.
kochia. And there was
That
a
means it's
forest of that
left
stuff
or
down there, and he got that pretty well eradicated last
Only
year,
if
and he
you're
did
from
a
Boston.
late spraying this year. Did the cemetery, which looks wonderful at the present moment, and all three of our parks.
This person, maybe I missed it, is it concerning, city right-of-ways, or where?
Well,
The weeds growing along the sidewalk.
so the concern as it was voiced to me, it was the impact on, isn't it the country fair or something like that?
Yeah,
that's
it's-
coming up in 2 weeks.
yeah.
And that with all the moisture that's gone on lately, that there's quite a number of weeds around town. The part of this that is most directly in our purview is the state of the ground that the city is responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
Along with that concern, assumedly, there was also an open-ended concern about some of the properties in town that have not taken care of their property well. I'm assuming without a enforcement officer and all of that in place, our hands are rather tied in the next 2 weeks as to do anything about private property.
Mhm.
But what I think we can do is
Clean
figure
our
out
own
what
mess.
is the state of the property that we own and make sure that that is well kept.
Are we referred to, Stephen, are we, like, up next to Highway 28 and the creek out here? Do something with it? Is it just weeds or is it mow grass? I seen the Public Works employee doing some on Cole Cooley, that's a road here, doing some weed eating. Are you suggesting maybe that we need to weed eat or mow those areas as well, or just?
I haven't had, so this concern got voiced to me today, so I haven't had time to look into a lot of the areas personally. I guess it would just be a general voice from the public to say that with another city event coming up in the next 2 weeks, if we can try to do what we can within that time frame to make sure that our areas are in order. And I'll try and do a little bit more walking and see what I see, if there's anything that's notable. But
I guess my question, I should be more specific, but is it the weeds or just tall grass or everything?
I think that all probably gets lumped into
Yeah,
one.
okay.
Yeah.
I can speak to this a little bit. At the chamber meeting today, who was putting on the Harrington Vintage Country Fair, they were talking about some of the areas they were going to have banners, and other areas where there would be gatherings. There was some tall grass, and some of it's public, some of it's private, and they were planning on primarily just going through and tidying it up with a weed whacker in the next week or so, just to.
Is that primarily the town square?
I think the town square, the private
Area.
property is across the street from the town
Okay.
square, which is the old gas station, and I think where the sign monuments on north and south side of town maybe where they're going to put up a banner, might
I
have
see.
tall grass, and they were going to just kind of zip that down to make sure it's more visible. So.
That's it.
Okay. Peter, question about the audit.
Audit, I should have brought this up at the time, maybe I did, but in the audit report, it cites a variance in the amount of approximately $83,000 was discovered. What was the nature of that? That's a significant amount of money.
You read something that I sure didn't see.
No, it's there.
I
There's two different entries.
believe, I'd have to check the recording, but I believe that question was asked in the exit interview and that they responded to it. So I would recommend going back to
Check
that
the
video
recording.
and listening to their response on that.
Okay?
Because I do remember them, I believe, Peter, it actually was you that asked in which direction that 83,000 was, whether it was in our favor or not.
No, I did.
Or maybe it was you, okay. So I do remember that the question was asked. I'm not going to attempt to reiterate the answers because I don't remember them well enough to go on record for it.
Well,
But
I believe it's when I was asked it, and I'd have to listen to it too, but I believe they said we reported more than what our bank statements showed.
I don't remember.
That recording online?
Yeah. And that
So the
was,
state put that one out there, but they had no intention of proving it one way or the other, huh?
well, they couldn't, I'll read what it. But there was two different years, I believe. There was 19 for an amount, and then there was 20 for an amount. They weren't just one lump sum. There was two different incidents.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I had that. Where
Yeah. That's not enough to get the Tesla I want, so you're gonna have to look deeper than that.
You were mayor at the time, so it's not your concern.
Well, I beg to differ with you on that one, my friend.
in 2019?
No, it doesn't matter what day it is. If you're mayor, you took on I took on all of their problems. I didn't get the keys to the Tesla though.
You should have read the fine print, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if I set that away already. But, yes.
I'll look it up.
I've got copies of the audit in the desk over there, but that sounds like something that requires a little bit of time.
They also said it'd come out in the financial audit next year.
Their primary goal was just a accountability audit. And the financial, that's true, would hold the keys to that. Okay, it was, to clarify right here, out of their exit recommendations, it says financial statement preparations. We identified variances of $52,466 for fiscal year 2019 and $32,288 for fiscal year 2020 between their annual report and bank statements. Has that cleared up, sort of?
Okay. Yeah.
I think I remember something to that effect,
But
and
we
they
don't
never
know
would
how that
answer whose favor
Variance
that was in.
resolved.
No, it just says, we recommend the city improve controls over financial reporting to ensure the financial statements are accurately presented based on supporting documentation.
Isn't it the auditor's responsibility to investigate, when they find such a variance, to investigate and run it to ground?
They do, but that was an accountability, not a financial, so I think they're gonna do that in the financial.
Okay.
But those are the 2 years, in different amounts, but they do add up to, I didn't do the math, but 80-some thousand.
That answers it,
You're happy?
for the time being.
Okay.
But the issue is still hanging in abeyance.
Yeah, and that's,
I don't know, we just paid the auditor.
yeah. Is that the last payment?
Yes, I believe so. That's one of the ones I'm looking at. That was we just paid the auditor,
It's like the last line.
$1,276.
It says April.
And it was around $3,900 a month we've been paying for about 11 months. So-
Auditing be its own line item on the budget.
Sounds like a good business to be in.
What's the city's annual budget approximately? $250,000, 300,000?
Well, under where we, so every time I look at that, I have to fill out that we're under 3 million, I think. To get on
Pull it
to,
up right here, you guys get it every year. You
Yeah,
don't want to approve it.
no, I've got this that's in our mailboxes. Looks like it's just north of 2.5
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what I was-
under 3 million.
with the cemetery.
with the cemetery and
what I was
with the
thinking.
grant monies that come in and of course immediately go back out. But it, according to this, as of May 20th, it was projected at 2.5.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
It's interesting, when we go in and we fill out that annual report, which is what we do every year, which is what I'm still working on, we submit those numbers, and the auditor puts flags on them as to whether or not there's a variance. And when I submitted the annual report in 2020 and 21, we're working on 21 right now, those flags come up and I clear those flags, so there shouldn't be any issue. So where they're getting these numbers, I don't know. Now, the one time I talked to our auditor who was here, she said, Mike, here's the nice thing, is your bank says you got way more money than you say you do. So I want you gentlemen, and I'm gonna be a little bit torqued here. You better be darn careful what you're saying at that table. Because we know what gets out in this community, in this county. And what you're hinting at is that I've done something inappropriate.
just keep
And I
in
take great offense to that.
point of
We
order,
haven't
Mr.
implied
Mayor,
that at all.
point of order.
I haven't.
No,
You gotta realize, Mr. Conrath, that this is the auditor, it's nobody here saying that.
Really?
Do you want me to pull it, show it to you? Nobody
I
here
think
pulled
it's
those
being
rabbits
hinted
up.
at, Councilman.
What's that?
I think it's being hinted at, and I take great offense to it.
I don't know anybody here that made you responsible for any of it.
I'm the city treasurer.
That is out of them verbatim that said
I'm
this.
not arguing with what the auditor said. I'm arguing with what is being hinted at by this council.
And you're out of line accusing us of that because Mr. Davenport had a legitimate question
He did.
and we answered it. Where'd that come from? 2 different years, 19
I'm
and 20.
saying you need to be just very careful.
We know what we need to do.
I think respect needs to be given too.
We're not accusing you of anything, Mr. Conrath. Obviously, there might be a typo or on their part. We don't even know if it's factual, because they couldn't really even tell us a definite answer of this whole deal. So we don't, until the financial audit, there's probably nothing wrong. In fact, I believe they said that we reported more than what, it was in our favor, or whatever the heck it was. I don't know at this time, and they really didn't have a crystal clear explanation. So there might not be anything. And trusting those guys, they might have made a mistake on their own part. We don't know that.
Well, let me make it very clear, there won't be anything.
Well, that's good. I mean, we won't know for sure until 23 is over with. And that's all we have to go by. None of us here accused you or anybody else of any wrongdoing or nefarious activity. This all comes from the $18,000 or $20,000 audit we just spent, and they just come up shooting with this, and what are we supposed to do? We didn't make it up. And they certainly didn't accuse you or the clerk or mayor or councilman from doing this, so just relax. It'll work out, trust me. Where were we?
Public comments.
Well, I had mine, so.
Sticker? Yeah. Jerry?
I have a couple suggestions, regarding replacement of trees at the cemetery. The Arbor Society does not have an exorbitant membership cost, and you get 2 free trees, or 10 free trees when you sign up for the Arbor Society. That may be a way to replace some of those trees, and they will be native trees to Washington, so they will have a longer lifespan.
Okay.
Secondly, regarding weed control in town, if we could solicit volunteers to spend a Saturday with their weed whackers, helping in that regard, we could get a lot done, and the city would not have to buy new equipment or pay a public works worker to work overtime. And it might actually get the job done quicker if people in the community would step up and help out, because we have a equipment shortage and personnel shortage, and one person can't do everything that they want done in this community. So I would suggest, if you're approached regarding a discrepancy in the community, that you solicit them to volunteer and come to City Hall and say, I'm willing to do this project. I will have them fill out a form and they can go do that project.
Do you have a date, a specific date, where a town cleanup day? Put an ad in the paper or advertiser. Harrington, some communities have it. I know some cemeteries have a cemetery cleanup week or day. Is that kind of, I mean, it's a good idea.
We could do that. We could establish one Saturday a month and have people sign up and come do things. Because that would get a lot of stuff done.
Because I'll go on record right now of saying for the stumps, I got a home for the stumps.
That would help. There
And
is a chance.
And then we
I
could have
can't
a-
say yes, but there is a chance that the Lions Club might show up with some trucks to help move it.
Talking about the light or the
Maybe.
cemetery?
Yeah, cemetery stumps. And then we'll have a weenie roast this fall.
I'll bring marshmallows.
Marshmallows, whatever, hot dogs.
Yes.
You're done.
Since we're talking about the cemetery, is there a plan going forward for preventative maintenance for the trees that are there and the new ones that will be planted, so that we don't get to the state where nothing's been done for them for years and they have to come through and clear them out?
Well, not at this present moment, there's not. Yes.
I think your dad used to have somebody come in there and
Yeah,
trim them.
And it stopped when he was no longer the mayor.
Right.
So those trees have gone almost a decade without having any kind of,
It's been that long.
And probably at least.
he died in
19.
19, and he was not mayor then for at least 2 years, so more than 4 years. Yeah, it's been about
Well, that's a program I think that we're in the works of taking care of. But back to answer, sorry, to follow up what Jerry said, this arborist society or group or whatever.
The tree company, yeah.
As far as you get a 10 trees,
yeah.
is that, I'm not opposed to that at all. That sounds,
Sounds like an interesting idea.
Sounds like
I have to look into
Yeah.
it.
that's a good idea, Jerry.
it's an excellent idea. I would encourage us, however, to, whoever takes this down is obviously gonna be a certified arborist, and I would encourage us to take their direction on their recommendations for the species and the type of tree to be used to replace. In other words, I think a cedar would be a poor choice.
Yeah. And I know the cemetery's under a specific grant, but is there a maintenance program for the ones in the parks? Or is that something that might want to add to the list?
There are some other trees that need to be taken down there as well.
Yep,
Everything starts with budget.
haven't even brought that one up yet.
Well, if the Fall Fest would use other wood, the same.
Move to adjourn.
Or have any more public comments?
I don't believe so.
No, but I mean down.
You
Anyone
have an
else?
appointment to make? Do you have an appointment to make?
Yes.
No, that's been done.
All right.
I think we should probably reappoint it.
Well, we could certainly bring it up.
Yeah. And oath.
And thank you very much. Oh, that's a good thing. Jerry,
No,
do you have an oath that can be administered to Sage tonight?
She's warm and breathing.
No, you don't.
no, nobody asked me to research that.
There's
I
one.
am not prepared. See, my first response is usually right.
I apologize for that.
No problem.
Is that why you came principally tonight, Sage?
No.
The oath?
Well, for the appointment and then also to connect with
Let's
Mike.
officially appoint her. Take a.
I believe that when we did our oaths afterwards when we were reelected.
Yeah.
So it can be done.
The appointment can be made and the oath can be done after.
Yeah.
So we did ours on December 31st.
29th.
Okay.
Just saying.
And mine was the 31st.
Well, my official retirement date on my resignation letter is June 30th, and so you could very appropriately administer the oath to Sage at the next regular council meeting after that point. She'll have already taken up the responsibilities of the office at that point. It would not be, I don't think it would be appropriate for her to take the oath. So that, you got a month then.
I think there was some confusion as to the order of operations. Let's just put it that way with how we were transitioning. It sounds like if that is June 30th is your resignation date, then it would be appropriate for us to clean some things up next meeting, or the July, or yeah.
July, what's our next, July 12th?
Well, I'm hoping maybe 22nd here.
No, you're on June.
June, yeah.
Yeah, June, 2 meetings a month.
When's our next
Well,
meeting again?
Or the 29th.
Right after.
I'll just come out and say this, and I have the documentation to prove, to back that up. We got an official future resignation date, which becomes effective June 30th, essentially. We can appoint her legally, officially, after that date, that day, or right after. Because legally, right now, it's not vacant. He is still, Mr. Conrath is still acting treasurer. After that, 30th. Good luck, no, you're in.
Good luck.
Thursday. June 30th is Thursday.
Yep.
Anyway, that's what MSRC and the ACW, all the rigmarole says to do and everything. And if anybody doubts that, you can go back to an article in the Record Times. Our county sheriff is resigned, or said he's resigning June 30th. Commissioners, you can do everything interview that candidate, but you can't vote on appointing until after that office is vacant. So verbatim what they said, they can't do anything or put somebody in that office until July 1st, as soon as, for
So
sheriff.
can we have a quick call on July 1st?
It's Friday.
I don't care.
Just the only two items on it would be official. Well, so at our next meeting, we can officially accept the resignation, right? Because it's dated in the future. And then on July 1st, we just do that appointment, which the council has already expressed intent on, so it should be all 5 minutes.
An official vote.
Would you
official
prefer that I
vote.
adjust my resignation date to the next council meeting to make it easier for you?
Well, that would,
If you don't have a concern about that, I think it would be
I don't have
smart.
any concern about that whatsoever. I'll just retype the letter and get it down here to Jess and we'll take care of it. That would make it easier on the council.
I appreciate the consideration.
Sure.
What day now?
To your next council meeting. You
22nd.
tell me the date,
20
we'll fix the letter.
June 22nd.
if council agrees to that, it's a done deal.
Yeah,
I have no qualms.
no problem with it.
And do both of those at the same night.
Yeah.
Okay?
June 22nd is the next regular meeting?
Special,
Special.
well, I don't know.
It's either the 22nd or the 29th. The 22nd would be, well, that's the 4th.
It
That's
was
not
when we were doing
two a month.
workshops,
Yeah.
but then that's changed with the OPMA stuff, so it's essentially our regular meeting, yeah.
This will be called a regular.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is essentially what our second meeting in the month, as far as I understand OPMA now,
Yeah.
the requirements are the same such that there is no to trying to have a workshop, so.
So June 2nd, there was supposed to be changes, and I have not listened to the OPMA again.
Well, they said essentially any meeting is a regular meeting.
Well, it
Well,
has the same requirements,
yes,
so,
as far as-
yeah. there's
Might as well.
There's no advantage to
Actually-
us. Yeah.
As you were, I should
22nd
restate
or the
that.
29th, forgive me for interrupting.
The 22nd,
22nd.
2 weeks
right.
from now.
You still have time to get
Kinda
excited.
like a marriage. You have time to run. Wow.
Wait, first school is out, then this is off your chest. What are you gonna do this summer?
Relax.
Party like a little rock star. Hallelujah, huh?
No, there's still some treasure work that'll be done voluntarily after that. So, and we gotta make sure Sage knows all the little nooks and crannies and twists and turns.
I was gonna say, can we get me trained in 2 weeks? Can we get me trained in 2 weeks?
I was anticipating more like 6 months.
Okay.
2 a year.
All you gotta do is just give me a call.
That's very generous. Thank you, Mike.
It's still on the floor.
It's a lot to learn.
What do we have to do then?
He did technically make the motion, it's waiting a second. I'll second.
Moved and seconded that we adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Did Stephen vote?
Yes, I did. I had my head down.
Tape
Levi's.
recorder off.
You need to declare the meeting.